Hi friends, I'm Wanda. I'm 28 years old, and I'm so happy to have you here with me today. I really enjoy relaxing with Minecraft and reading amazing Reddit stories. So get cozy, take a deep breath, and let's start with today's story. When guests visited our apartment, they always commented on the smell, something old, almost medicinal. We blamed the building's age, and after removing their shoes to come in, they'd eventually stop noticing it. 3 years later, and I still smell it. Reminds me of hospitals from my childhood. My roommate Paul had the bigger room because he was here first, and I had responded to an ad online to rent the other. Kitchen common area where we had the TV and our gaming consoles, dining nook, and a covered patio. Paul and I got along even though we came from different worlds. His was one that required a lot of posturing with friends and being perpetually online. Mine was maybe lonelier. Somehow, we clicked, and after our respective workdays, we often found ourselves collaborating on meals and playing games late. I liked RPGs. He preferred co-op shooters, which I joined reluctantly because he got frustrated, yelled, and gave me side-eye whenever I suggested staying calm. He blamed his thick fingers. From our apartment, you could look down at a parking lot where every Tuesday garbage trucks made their rounds at 7 a.m. to the chagrin of tenants whose bedrooms faced that way, like mine. I feel like these are important details. I'm describing my life as it has been for a while. It's where I live, and it's where I am now. It's the mundane little facts that I need to tell you, so that they serve as counterweights to the hefty truth I'm about to unload in search of sober advice. I just need to tell it so that you can understand. You won't understand, but I've got to at least try. Ollie, check it out. I remember Paul said. I slurped some Cheerios messily and looked up from my phone. What up? I said. Those look new. I lazily pulled myself up and looked out the window. Huh, what, where? Those shoes. I'm gonna go get them. Paul rushed out and soon emerged in the parking lot. I watched him step gingerly in his moccasins to the dumpster and scoop up the pair of bright white sneakers, grinning up at me as he scurried back. The door slammed. I pressed into my lower back to stretch as Paul came in. He proudly displayed the pair of shoes in one hand and snapped with the other. Tight. They don't stink, I said. The shoes were completely white, and despite sitting by a dumpster, were impeccably clean. Smell like roses, these, he said. Well, will they fit? Size 11, baby. He confirmed. Nice coincidence. Now we've come to the part of the story I can't really expect you to believe. I wouldn't. In my family, we've seen tragedy. My younger brother was born with a disease that meant lots of operations before he could even walk. Hospitals became second homes. Iodine soap, a familiar salve, plastic-wrapped food, and peel-back tin capped juice in those milky plastic containers a family meal. I accompanied my parents every time they went, and each time was like sucking the color out of dreams, the whimsy out of imagination. I didn't grow up all at once, but my childhood was not child-friendly. I learned that life was limited, solutions pragmatic, and usually muted and smelly. "Lemme try M on," said Paul. He sat on the couch, pulled off his moccasins, put on the right shoe, then the left, and disappeared. As soon as he put those shoes on, he was gone. Gone not in any sense that is common. I mean gone without any real-world indication that he was there before. Gone without any vision, nor any sound that would signal his disappearing. He was there, then he wasn't, as if his existence simply ceased. I watched the couch cushion slowly reform itself where Paul had been sitting. I was still standing, but I had moved back up against the wall and my palms were pressed against it, as if expecting the room to suddenly fall away, or for gravity's pull to shift 90 degrees. What felt like eternity was only a minute, and then Paul was back, sitting on the couch, panting, one of the new shoes in his hand. He looked around like a stranger before finding my eyes and locking on, making me feel like prey. "Fuck," I yelled. "Fuck," he whispered. He slowly regained control of his breathing and then yelled, wide-eyed at me. "Fuck, Ollie." "What?" I screamed back, shaking. "What?" Blood rushed back into his face as his complexion softened and his eyes narrowed. "Bro," he said, "you won't believe it. I didn't believe it." He told me that he was in a forest. He said it was hot and humid, and the noises of insects, birds, and dripping rain were as vivid as anything here. He struggled to recall things at first because of the shock, but as we calmed down, he told me he had truly been there, in the rainforest, standing on moist black dirt and looking up at sunlight-piercing canopy. He said it smelled exquisite, a word that was out of character for him. "You're saying you were in the Amazon," I said finally. "No idea, bro," he said. "Amazon maybe. I don't know. Maybe Borneo. I don't know. The rainforest man. The dead-ass rainforest." "All right," I said. By now he had taken off the other shoe, and the pair was just sitting there in front of us on the rug. Paul eyed me, looked at the shoes. "Yup," he said. "You gotta." "The hell I do," I countered. "You gotta." He grimaced, reading my face, I guess. "You wanna, Ollie. You wanna, trust me." I did. I felt calm enough to know that I did. I had to try this. They'd fit my size 10 feet. I bent down and grabbed one, slipped it on my socked foot, grabbed the other and held there, staring at Paul. "What should I know?" I prompted. "Fuck, right, dude. Listen, just take the shoe off. It's what I did. And pow, I'm back. Just take off the shoes." This was our exchange before I put the other shoe on, and the apartment was immediately gone. No cues, no noise or visual of transition. Just there, and now here. Where was I? It wasn't a forest like Paul. It was a field. I felt the sun on my skin, hills in the distance, and a highway. A semi-truck rumbling past. Buildings in the distance. I bent down and tore off a shoe, and was suddenly back in the apartment, facing a roommate whose body language bounced with intrigue. "Dude," he yelled, "you just vanished." "My God," I said. "Jesus Christ." He was nodding with his whole head and neck, as if vibing. Wide-eyed, unblinking. "Sick, right? The rainforest." "Not a forest," I said. "More like a prairie, I guess." But there was a road, a big truck. Buildings, too. No shit. "I'd have checked out those buildings," he said a bit curtly. "Yeah, but I came back before I could really get my bearings. It was crazy." Crazy," he repeated. "Crazy." We both looked at the shoe I held. So, this is the secret. Magical shoes that transported us. Not unheard of in fiction, but I am telling you that this happened to us. Paul went to a forest. I went to a prairie. We found a pair of shoes in the trash and put them on and were teleported to these destinations instantaneously. It didn't stop there. It couldn't. Would you have stopped? Paul went again. When he came back, he told me he was on a hill overlooking a valley and could see a whole city that he didn't recognize. I went again and found myself on a gray sand beach with a cold wind. We went a few more times like this. Once, I found myself on a snowy mountain, and when I reappeared in our apartment, Paul said I was cold to the touch. There was even snow in my hair. Then Paul went again, and the asshole was gone for 5 whole minutes. When he returned, I was surprised to see him cradling about 10 mangoes. "What the hell?" I said. "A mango orchard man. A bleeping orchard for real. Are they ripe?" We took a break from teleportation over slices of fresh mango. We discussed our experience and decided that the destinations were random. We knew it didn't matter if we walked around, that we always returned to the apartment. We knew there were cities, so we knew there were people. It was clearly Earth, so whatever magic this was, it was here. But when was it? Had either of us seen anything out of whack for 2025? No, we hadn't. Still no people. "Maybe we should stop," I remember saying. "Give it a rest, maybe." Neither of us wanted to do that. We had the whole day still. We took turns teleporting, and we learned more. We started to figure that eventually we should land in cities. A few times we each landed within sight of populations, but since we had agreed to a 1-minute limit after Paul's 5-minute disappearance, we couldn't yet reach those places. Paul begrudged the rule. We also figured that if we hadn't landed in towns or cities yet, it was only because most of the globe is still just wild land, farms, or water. Bad timing. To jinx ourselves like that, I pulled on the second shoe and at once lost my senses. Not that I couldn't feel, because the shock of cold was devastating and I gasped. Not that I couldn't taste, because when I gasped, I lost my breath as my mouth filled with icy salt water. Not that I couldn't see, but it was black night, and then plunging darkness. Not that I couldn't hear, but it was shrieking wind, and then warbled frigid water in ghostly depths that seemed to tear me in different directions. I struggled, panic-filled. Reach. But swim, swim, I thought. Must breathe, I knew, but I could escape this. I reached, And just as my lungs began to inhale, my frozen knuckles locked their fingers around a shoe and tugged it off. Suddenly, I was in the apartment on all fours, heaving and vomiting salt water over a rug, shivering miserably, drenched completely. I felt Paul hitting my back. My ears were ringing, adjusting to the sudden warmth. Paul brought water, patted my back. I said. My voice sounded like gravel. I was in the ocean, I think. Paul just stared, nodded. He was amazed, and still I sensed jealous. Later, I sat in my robe, wrapped in towels before a humming space heater. I told him about the storm, the night. We had already experienced nighttime in the couple hours we had been at this adventure. I told him about the crashing waves that I couldn't escape. We have to be more careful, I said. That had been enough for one day. We agreed the shoes would stay in the living room, that we would only use them together. We spent the rest of the evening talking about it, unbelieving but convinced. We planned. From now on, we had an entry position. We'd sit in cannonball position, but one leg crossing the other. Both hands would grasp the second shoe as we put it on, so that we'd already be prepared to yank it off in case of trouble. We considered other things like wearing a wetsuit and flippers, goggles, even an oxygen tank, given how likely it should be that we'd land in an ocean somewhere. But ultimately, we decided to buy a large plastic sheet from Home Depot and lay it out on the living room floor to catch water, and to purchase a simple life jacket that wouldn't hinder movement when teleporting plopped us on dry land. I barely slept that night. As frightening as they were, these shoes changed my life. I was jittery with excitement, suppressing fear. We both called in sick next morning. Of course we did. Then we got into Paul's car and went on our errands. Only took an hour. Back at the apartment, we laid our new plastic sheet where the rug had been. Rug was hung to dry out on the patio. The life jacket was a small sea kayaker's jacket, stylish and minimal. We had also bought a small knife, some beef jerky, a headlamp, a length of high-strength static line, and bug spray. The jacket had pockets for these things. We also decided to pack my phone in the jacket. It had a better waterproof rating than Paul S., and my international roaming plan was less ghastly expensive than his. If we ever landed somewhere with signal, we wanted to take photos and videos. But mostly, it was to set the timer, as we'd agreed to increase the time to 5 minutes. Later, we'd increase it to 10 minutes. We shared a large breakfast of hash browns, egg sausage sandwiches, and dark coffee. Then the adventure began. As the morning progressed, an area of our living room began to look like a naturopath's collection. On each trip, we'd bring something back: a rock, a branch, a flower or bundle of grass, dirt, or sometimes trash. It was shocking how rarely we landed close to people, yet how often we found trash. It became clear that we were hitting places all over the world. Wrappers with Chinese lettering, a grocery bag with Tamil, the phone translation app said, French, other languages we'd yet to identify. On one trip, Paul was gone over 5 minutes. I began to worry. His phone rang and I picked it up. "Ollie," it read. I accepted. "Paul," I said haltingly. "Bruo," I heard him yell. It was a perfectly clear call. "Paul," I exclaimed. I stood and paced. "Paul, where are you?" "I'm not sure, but I got bars, bro." "So I'm callin'. Any landmark? What's the climate?" "Pretty dry." "I think I'm in a desert, but there are power lines I see." "I guess a cell tower's close so." My hand was in my hair, as if calming my mind. "Clear skies," he said. "Maybe you're stateside somewhere. Southwest. Take a photo. We can reverse image search back here again. Or wait, just open the map app. I downloaded a ton of regions last night." "Hold on." I waited a few seconds. "No dice, no internet, just calling. GPS shows I'm nowhere," he said. "Damn." "Yeah, hey, Ollie, what's up?" Just then he appeared almost exactly where I was pacing, and I bumped into him, knocking us both to the plastic-covered ground. We laughed maniacally. When we calmed, he showed me some photos he'd taken. "GeoGuessr, eat your heart out," I said. "Huh, you know, that Google Maps Street View game. It shows you a street view somewhere on the planet, and you guess where it is by dropping a pin on a map. Whoever's closest wins." I played with colleagues a few times. "That's an idea," said Paul. We created a map, named it Jumping Jimmy's. Then we did a reverse image search on one of the pictures that Paul had taken with my phone. While it wasn't conclusive, it gave us some lookalikes. "Could be that one. Red sand in Saudi." I said. "But look at that rock, a bit too unique. You would have seen that." "This one, Devil's Desert, not sandy enough." "Namibia, no." "Wait, that one," Paul exclaimed. "What's that?" "Oh yeah, that looks good. Says Atacama, Chile." "Yes, that's it, I'm sure of it. Mark it." We chose a series of icons that we labeled by the percentage of how sure we were of each location. Tilde 90% on the Atacama Desert, green circle. Elation welled up in my heart. I had always loved to travel, and now I was traveling the world incognito. Paul and I were prepared, ready, and eager. We thought we anticipated everything. If only we'd kept our guard up. By evening, many colorful icons dotted our map. We had taken dozens of photos, one of Paul's toothy smile beside a grinning shepherd on a mountain road somewhere in Kyrgyzstan. Another of a group of people at a bus stop in a Colombian town. Paul envied how often I landed with people. "Yeah, you always get the good places," Paul said. "I just get trees and hills." Every single time, puddles pooled on the plastic tarp in our living room. From a handful of times, we found ourselves swimming. Paul wanted to visit a city, but I wasn't ready to increase our time limit enough to walk to one or to board a bus like in Colombia. We had to take it slowly, and I knew that if Paul would be patient, we'd land in one. But then it finally happened. Tokyo is the largest city on Earth, with a population over 30 million. Fitting then that it was the first big city we happened upon, or that I happened learned to rein in my expectations when slipping on the second shoe. In less than an instant, I was teleported onto a narrow road, remarkably carless and calm, staring up at skyscrapers glinting in sunlight. I recognized Japanese on the shopfront and English accompanying all the street signs. In fact, I'd been to Tokyo before, and so the sight was familiar. The sight of me, however, less so. At least to a curious couple ogling me, I realized a foreigner in the middle of a Tokyo street, wearing a life jacket packed with survival items, and awkwardly sat hugging his knees, and grabbing a shoe would look bizarre. I scampered to my feet and out of the way of a stout little delivery van driving past. I smiled at the couple who continued walking. I retrieved my cell phone 9 minutes 4 seconds left before I should remove a shoe. Something immediately caught my attention, the sweet scent of tempura frying. I located its source, a small restaurant with ubiquitous Norin fabric hanging to mark its entryway. I was in Tokyo. I loved Japanese food, loved it absolutely. Here I was. I had to right. We couldn't control where we landed, so who knows when I'd happen upon Japan and Tokyo itself again. I found my hands searching my chest as I realized I had no money. We should have been traveling with credit cards at least, but they pay with cash here mostly. Impractical to travel with every currency, though, and impractical to expect a currency exchange. Then it dawned on me, to my shame and to my joy, that I could dine and dash without so much as a step to flee. Parted the Norin to enter. Konnichiwa, hello. I sat at the bar in the narrow locale, removing my life jacket ashamedly and hanging it on a hook underneath. I ordered the tendon by pointing. The aroma, the delectable crispy vegetables and shrimp, beautifully crisp and umami flavors. As if waking from a dream, I remembered Paul and quickly checked the time. I was already 10 minutes overdue. With averted eyes and utter embarrassment and shame for what they'd think, I snatched my life jacket and ducked under the bar, removed a shoe. Son of a bitch, yelled Paul. Where the fuck were you? I was freaking out, man. We said 10 minutes. He sniffed. What's that smell? I begged his forgiveness and placed my hands on his shoulders, urging him onto the couch. Calm, calm. It's toasted sesame, I said. I was in Tokyo. I ate tempura. Tempura. That fried stuff they serve with sushi. Sure, yeah. Did you say? Tokyo, a city. You ate in a city. He yelled, smiling. Damn right, I said. Jumpin' jimmies. He yelled, and I repeated that refrain reflexively. Mark it down. A city, you lucky bastard. Loki smells insane. You lucky, lucky asshole. And you didn't bring any back. Damn it, I said. I'm sorry, Paul. I didn't think about it. When I saw the time. Yeah, all good. Man, I want to land in a city. Paul's eyes were on the life jacket, but not really. They were distant, imaginative. I couldn't tell if he was more happy or more envious. Long stares are tough to decipher. You'll get there, man, I promise. We'll get you there. For a moment, annoyance crossed his expression, didn't linger long enough for comment. "Yeah," he said plainly. We jumped a few more times, and then Paul said he wanted to take a break. Envious, it turned out. He was sulking, disappeared into his room without too many words between us. I figured he'd just have to let it settle, and we'd be back at it in the evening. I fixed myself a sandwich and ate it while observing our disorderly living room. Souvenirs, laptops, wet plastic. Then I retired to my own room, surprised to feel tired. I think the jumps take it out of you. I sank into willful sleep. When next I woke, it was dark outside. I'd slept the whole afternoon. Clock read 9 p.m. out. In the living room, everything looked the same. Paul's door was shut. My mouth felt dry, and so I poured a glass of water and leaned on the counter, marveling at our mess again. Then I saw. The shoes were gone. I set the glass down and skipped to Paul's door, knocked. "Paul, you awake?" I opened it. Paul, not there. As I rushed back into the living room and started appending cushions in search of the shoes, it was like watching an actor in a movie you've already seen. I knew he'd taken them. I knew he jumped. The life jacket was on the floor. I retrieved my phone from a pouch. Idiot, I thought. You left it. No missed calls, no texts. I called Paul's phone and heard it ringing in his room. Idiot, I said to myself more sharply. How long had he been gone? I looked for any new artifacts, any notes, or new pins on our Google map. Nothing. I checked the tarp, which was mostly dry now. His car was still parked outside. I opened our front door and stuck my head out. Hallway was clear. This son of a bitch straight upped on the shoes and pieced, I said aloud. In anger, I sounded more like Paul than myself. Oppressive silence seemed to coalesce. It was a bit more humid than normal, all the extra salt water. Suddenly, our pile of artifacts and souvenirs seemed nasty, so I grabbed a garbage bag and shoved everything in, tied it off. I was helpless. Hours went by. It was 3 a.m. by the time I felt tired again. My eyes stung. I drank some water and retreated to my bed, where I finally let myself pass out. Beep, beep, beep. Groggy and petrified, I calmed myself when I realized I was just waking up. The garbage truck upturned the dumpster, its metal arms clanging as it guzzled trash, and then replaced the container, drove off. I fell out of bed. 7 a.m. out in the living room, the scene was unchanged. No Paul. He had been gone for so many hours. I cooked runny oatmeal, added raisins, and slurped it. Could he have drowned? Didn't take the life jacket, the buffoon. Real possibility. Maybe he landed in Vegas and would pop back home to regale me with some story worthy of The Hangover. Wild animal could have attacked him, but I struggled to imagine he wouldn't have the time to remove a shoe. Maybe he's just on a hike. I knew I shouldn't have eaten that tempura. I like Paul, but I knew he was quick to jealousy. Why didn't I smooth things over? It would have taken 5 minutes max. Paul's ego needed to be coaxed. 2 days days, and already we're at each other's throats. No, that can't be it. A misunderstanding, maybe. He's just off to prove a point. Don't fuck with the rules, Ollie, he'll tell me. Tell yourself, man, leaving precautions behind. No phone even. God damn it. I was chewing on a raisin, the wet oatmeal juice resting in my mouth, awaiting to be swallowed. I was staring at the plastic sheet on our living room floor. One moment, that's all I was doing. The next, I was staring at a body. Face down, shirtless, holes in his back, blood pooling, some dripping down the torso. White shorts, pockets outturned, stained. One white shoe stained, the other foot bare and dirty. Thick fingers, bent and broken on one hand. The way jumping works, it makes it seem that this body had been there for as long as I had been looking at that spot, that I'd been staring at it while I slurped cooling oatmeal, that I should feel guilty for only plunging into nightmare after the body appeared and not before. Paul's body, his hair, his broken hands, the smell. My mind recalled images of hospitals and gowns with geometric prints, hands scrubbing harsh brown bars of soap with foam that smelled medicinal and metallic and burnt. The smell of memory competed with the smell of death, one trying to sanitize the other because it cannot be. It can't. He can't be dead. Oatmeal dribbled down my chin before I could close my mouth. It suddenly tasted like raw meat, and I spat into the sink. I became aware of my pounding heart playing catch-up. All my senses were delayed, as if reality could not so abruptly be changed, so noiselessly debased to this horror. Each sniff triggered a gag. Each blink felt eternal. Give it enough time to just erase this. Blink it out of existence. I know it can be done. Please, please, please. I write this anonymously. My name's not Ollie, and his is not Paul, but I need help. There is a body shot to death, laying on a plastic tarp in my living room. There's only one shoe, the other is gone. No one will believe me. What do I do?